the opposing country, their foreign patrons. They will refuse to have a substantive conversation. Russia will achieve the liberation of its historical lands by military means.
Putin, who has lost his mind, has decided to fight until the complete end of Russia. Putin, in principle, has already been defeated in the war, back in April 2022, when he failed to take Kiev and his blitzkrieg collapsed. Any other reasonable leader would have immediately sought a truce to save the lives of his own soldiers and the integrity of the country. But Putin suffers from a severe form of mania, a sense of grandeur that at the same time borders on a deep inferiority complex. This affliction does not allow him to admit his own defeat. After all, he swam in a submarine, flew with the cranes, took out terrorists in the bathroom, seduced a gymnast, blackmailed Europe with gas, and now he can't manage to conquer and reign in some Ukraine.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would also like to ask you a question. What are Odessa and Mykolaiv somehow being left out of the equation? Why haven't we blocked them yet? Answer me, will you? Maybe we need to curb our appetite and understand what our army is actually capable of? What about the capabilities of the Ukrainian army?
In the end, we've been watching the convulsions of the Russian army, economy, and statehood for 4 years now. Despite the fact that the occupiers are constantly advancing, their defeat is only a matter of time. And there isn't much time left. Even the most fanatical propagandists among their own people no longer believe in victory, or even anything resembling victory.
How is that? It's a regime at the top, with some KVN comedian, a satirist like Zelensky at the helm. It turned out like this. He held out, you see, he managed to endure. This is actually a kind of cultural and civilizational expression.
For good reason. Right now, Putin is trying, with Trump's help, to push through a diplomatic capitulation of Ukraine. Because there is no chance from a military standpoint. Even his Botox-filled brain understands that. If the adventure with the Kremlin's peace plan fails, and it will, then Putin and his inner circle will they'll need to look for a backup airfield to escape from an international tribunal or their own enraged population. After the defeat, the people will wake up from their propaganda-induced coma and demand retribution against their former bald idol, who plunged the country into poverty, ruin, and international isolation. Even though he promised greatness, a Russian world from Kamchatka to Lisbon, and as a bonus, to take revenge on the Pechenegs.
Our country has gone through serious trials more than once. It was tormented by the Pechenegs and by the Polovtsians too. Russia overcame all of them.
Why did they even let him out of the hospital? It's no wonder that now Putin is especially actively preparing the ground for retreat. Or rather, for escape. According to the latest data and satellite images, North Korea is hastily building 3 luxurious mansions at once, on the grounds of the Kemsusan guest complex in Pyongyang. Each of the mansions covers about 13,000 square meters. The facilities are being prepared to receive high-ranking foreign leaders, or one particular not-quite leader. There is reason to believe that this is the hideout where Putin plans to take refuge after the war and fleeing Russia. And
North Korea is a genuine partner, a true friend. And over there, it's a real celebration. So what actually happened? Why did Putin need to go to North Korea? Right now, the war is taking such a turn that a Russian defeat is entirely possible. And the territory will be occupied. Ukrainian troops will enter Moscow, and they'll even be welcomed with bread and salt, just like it was with Prigozhin. And then, who knows, maybe they'll go as far as the Urals. And Putin understands this. And Putin went to North Korea to check out some living space for himself.
Interestingly, alongside the construction of mansions, they're also building a cemetery and a museum for North Korean soldiers who died in the war against Ukraine. Knowing dictators' love for symbolism, we can conclude that the residence is indeed being prepared for Russians. Lately, Putin and Kim Jong-un have grown very close, just like Hitler and Mussolini. And taking refuge in North Korea seems like the most obvious option, but it's not the only one. There's also China. Beijing would never hand Putin over to Ukraine or the International Court, and would even allow him to transfer some of his savings. It seems like the perfect option, but Putin himself wouldn't want to hide out in China. Once again, his wounded ego wouldn't allow it. He's already in fact a vassal of China and a personal lackey to Xi Jinping. But to end up physically dependent on them is even more terrifying for him than death. Putin would never want to end up in China in the same position as Yanukovych.
In other words, if he leaves power, if he gives up his post, then most likely he'll be killed by his own people, by his own inner circle. So in a situation like this, when a dictator steps down, well, just look at your Yanukovych, right? He lives in Moscow now. But is that really living? Just imagine Putin, a man who considered himself the ruler of the world, who was at the head of a nuclear superpower, formerly the largest in the world. And suddenly he has to live in some North Korea, even in the most luxurious palace there.
Not long ago, Venezuela could have been a refuge for a fugitive war criminal. But something went wrong.
I truly and deeply love with all my heart and soul, and cherish. The distinct aroma of napalm in the morning.
There are still two options left in South America. One is exotic and the other is humiliating. The exotic option is to lie low in Nicaragua. There, a marginal regime rules, which exists solely thanks to financial handouts from Moscow. Everything is run by the local version of Lukashenko, Daniel Ortega. He persecutes dissent, has imprisoned the opposition, and delights in all the crimes committed by Russia. Nicaragua is one of the few countries that recognize Crimea as Russian.
We have gathered here today for the significant occasion of signing documents on cooperation between the Donetsk People's Republic, the Luhansk People's Republic, the Zaporizhzhia and Kherson regions, as well as Sevastopol on one side and the Republic of Nicaragua on the other.
And also President Ortega and his vice president, who is also his wife,
Oh, how convenient.
openly supported Russia's full-scale invasion. They told Ukraine that they recognize all the occupied territories. To top it all off, Ortega calls the president of Ukraine and the prime minister of Israel servants of Satan and Hitler.
They wanted to bring the fascist Nazi president of Ukraine so that he would attend the summit.
On Nicaraguan paper, the perfect place for a Botoxed dictator to grow old. But in reality, there is no guarantee that after Putin loses the ability to prop up Ortega's regime with Russian budget money, the American Chick-Chirik won't hand him over guts and all for a good cash reward. All the dictatorial regimes that support Russia only do so as long as the Kremlin pays their bills.
Keep your money in a savings bank.
No one can guarantee that this exact same current regime, some indeed, won't just throw them into the same mine. Those very oligarchs, they might just wall them up somewhere and keep the money for themselves. That's the least that could happen. Besides, what stable regimes even exist there? For decades?
In America, the only shameful option left is to ask for asylum in Argentina. Judging by the massive drug trafficking organized directly by the Russian Foreign Ministry, that is, by Putin himself, there are connections. They exist there. But there's a risk that the loyal population of the swamps, the ultra-patriots, and various we-can-do-anything types, the loyalists won't survive it if their great geostrategist follows the path of the fleeing Nazis of the Third Reich.
Well, there is. After all, Argentina is a place where many people have hidden, and by and large, many have actually managed to hide. But it's not all so rosy. There are some nuances. He
isn't exactly being awaited there with open arms. Because at the first request from the Americans, I think they will hand him over. Well, except maybe for the initials in Cuba.
Putin is a coward and a paranoid, which is why he's obsessed with his own security. During his time in power, he has built dozens of secret bunkers and hideouts all across Russia. For every possible scenario, there's a bunker under the Kremlin, one beneath the rock in Gelendzhik, one in Valdai in the Nizhny Novgorod region, the one Trump is so concerned about.
Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is sending signals to Washington. According to him, on the night of December 29th, Ukraine attempted to attack Putin's residence in the Novgorod region with drones. In the sky, it was destroyed. 91 drones, claims Lavrov. No evidence whatsoever. Neither he nor the Russian military provide any proof for their words.
But Putin's main storage facility, and that of his doubles, was built in Altai. So far away that neither an uprising crowd could reach it, nor a nuclear missile could find it. The construction is personally overseen by the head of the central bank, Hermann Greff. Which means this is no ordinary dacha, but one with Koshai's needle.
Hermann Greff, that is, Sberbank of Russia, bought this airport in Gorno-Altaysk in April, literally just a month and a half ago. It's not needed for any business, for anything of mine, it's unnecessary. This could only be necessary if the Tsar really intends to hide in these mountains, along with the locals, and we'll discuss that now.
Putin knows that he is a war criminal and the main villain on planet Earth, and like any criminal, he is afraid of being caught and punished. That's why he frantically digs bunkers and looks for escape routes. But he won't be able to hide for long. If he doesn't believe it, he can ask Saddam Hussein. I want to remind you that this video was created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated form. This is done to create a comedic or dramatic effect. We do not aim to mislead, but simply focus on humor. Please take this with a smile.